of my Schwinn, made in America Schwinn, back then, and just ride it over the slot car track and
Did you guys
spend the day over there.
People like you were classmates with?
Well, John Anderson and Brian Warmack, we all went for from 7th grade until we graduated from high school, and then Brian went over to Europe to work for Surtees, and but I quit around '68 because there weren't any, there was maybe a couple of tracks around, but they were pretty far away.
Yeah, I continued racing. In fact, Don's Raceway up until the day Don closed, and that's when I got out of racing. But I mean, we held ARCO races there. I can still remember Pete Zimmerman sleeping under the King track. And one of the funny stories is at Don's Raceway, we had an original American Blue King that had the bump in the straightaway, and Terry Schmidt was turn marshaling the bump there. So he's at the end of the bank. A car flew up and hit Terry in the forehead, and Terry went back like this, and it was literally almost knocked out. And from that point on, at Don's, we put up a big checkered flag that hung behind the bank, so when cars shot off into it, they'd slide down, and the turn marshal would then pull it out of the flag and then put the car back on. But it almost killed poor Terry. But those were great days. And I wish I'd met Phil back racing in those days. But in '66, '67, I couldn't drive yet. I didn't get my license until '68.
Yeah, you're either on foot or on bike.
Or on bikes. And you could only go so far on a bike. And we used to get John Sucris, Stubby, my gosh, Bob Rule used to come in. Bob Green, that invented the green can for Mura and everything. All those guys used to come in. We used to race. In fact, I always laugh to this day that Bob Green was so successful at Mura because Bob Green was a noose. We used to beat Green every week in local races. The guy couldn't do it. He couldn't drive, but he could build a hell of a motor.
Brian was actually known back then more for building cars. John was always the great driver, but now that we're back racing again, I mean, look at Brian. He's probably a better driver now than maybe he was back then.
Better driver.
I mean, he was certainly good back then.
Yeah.
But I think he may be even better now.
And he's an incredible builder. And back in those days, Brian and Terry had a business together selling chassis in the back of Car Model magazine. So it was really funny because, the chassis would change every few weeks. I mean, the innovation and everything that was happening. And I'll never forget when they brought a sidewinder, an angle winder into Don's Raceway, and everybody just looked at it like, you got to be kidding. Nobody's going to race this pile. I'll never forget because it had a Revell motor mounted as an angle winder, and the thing just lit up the track. And we knew, from that minute on, we knew we were toast because this thing just handled unbelievably. And within weeks, everybody had built a Sidewinder car.
What year was that, Mel?
My gosh. Late 67, early 68, something around there. In those days you'd have these guys come in from everywhere,